All right, let's talk about one of Vietnam's most epic legends, the story of Son Tinh and Thuy Tinh. You know, the mountain god versus the water god. If you're from Vietnam, you've probably known this story your whole life. It's this incredible tale of gods, a beautiful princess, and a yearly war against nature itself.
But here's where it gets really interesting. What if the hero of this whole myth, the mountain god Son Tinh, wasn't just a legend? What if behind all the divine powers in those massive battles, there was an actual man with a real name, a family, and a completely different reason for going to war? Let's dig into it.
Okay, so first, let's just do a quick refresher on the classic story, the one everybody knows. This is Son Tinh, the mountain god, just as the legend has been told for generations. The story kicks off with the 18th Hun King. He's got a daughter, Princess Mi Nung, who's incredibly beautiful, and he's looking for the perfect husband for her. And as it turns out, two suitors show up who are, well, they're way beyond ordinary men.
So on one side, you've got Son Tinh, the mountain god. He's the master of the land. He can literally raise mountains with just a wave of his hand. And on the other side, you've got Thuy Tinh, the water god. He commands the oceans, and he can summon these devastating storms and floods. Both are crazy powerful. Both are totally worthy. So, how on earth do you choose between them?
Well, the king sets up this basically impossible challenge. He says the first one to show up with a very specific list of wedding gifts, we're talking mythical creatures here, like 9 tusked elephants and 9 spurred roosters, gets to marry the princess. It was a full-on race against time.
Now, being the god of the mountain, Son Tinh kind of had a home field advantage for finding all these forest treasures. So he gathers the gifts first, he wins the princess's hand, and he takes her back to his home on the mountain. Thuy Tinh arrives just a little too late, and his heartbreak instantly turns into this absolute boiling rage. He unleashes a massive flood to try and destroy Son Tinh and get the princess back, kicking off a war that, according to the legend, happens every single year, even to this day.
So that's the myth. It's a classic story, right? Love, rivalry, man versus nature. But now let's look at what the historical records kept in a small temple in Phu Tho have to say, because this is where the story takes a really fascinating turn.
Get this. The keeper of the Lung Sung Temple, which is said to be Son Tinh actual birthplace, drops this bombshell. He says, look, people think the mountain saint is just a legend, but the royal records we have right here show he was a real person, and his name was Wintons.
And these records are incredibly specific. They name his parents, they pinpoint his exact birthplace. They even describe his miraculous birth, how his mother conceived him after seeing a golden dragon in a well, and how he was born after a 14-month pregnancy. All of a sudden, this god has a very human backstory.
Okay, so if Son Tinh was actually a man named Nguyen Tuns, does that change the reason for the big fight? Well, according to the temple records, it changes everything. The motivation wasn't about winning a princess's hand at all. According to this version of the story, Nguyen Tuns once used a magical staff to save the life of the Water King's son. Now, to repay this huge debt, the son stole a super powerful artifact from his own father, a magical book of wishes, and gave it to Nguyen Tuan. So the war wasn't about romantic jealousy, it was the Water King, furious, trying to get his powerful stolen property back. That is a completely different story.
So whether he was a man or a god, this figure became so important that he was elevated to the highest level of divinity in Vietnamese culture. He became known as the first of the 4 immortals.
Yeah, he's part of the Du But Du, which you can think of as the Mount Rushmore of deities in the Vietnamese pantheon. Each one represents something absolutely essential to the national spirit. You've got Thang Xiang for resisting invaders, Chu Dang Thu for love and prosperity, and Princess Lu Hank for spiritual life. But the first among them, the leader of the pack, is Son Tinh, and he represents that crucial, unending struggle to conquer nature and survive disasters.
And his importance is literally rooted in the earth itself. The great scholar Nguyen Tri once called Son Tinh home Ba Vi Mountain, the ancestor mountain of our Nam country. He's not just some god who lives on a mountain. He is spiritually connected to the very origin of the nation.
And this is the most important part. This isn't just some ancient story or a historical debate. The figure of Son Tinh carries this incredibly deep meaning that is just as relevant in Vietnam today as it was thousands of years ago.
This is the real power of the story.
Son Tinh isn't just a god fighting floods, he is a symbol of the Vietnamese people. He represents that unbreakable, tough, resilient spirit of a nation that for centuries has faced down natural disasters like typhoons and floods, and yet always, always finds a way to stand firm, to rebuild, and to endure. They never lose.
And that innovative spirit is still alive and well. The legend is constantly being rediscovered by new generations. Just look at the students at FPT Polytechnic, who recently used modern animation tools to retell the story, making sure this ancient symbol of resilience keeps inspiring people in the digital age. It's pretty cool to see.
Which brings us to this final thought. Whether he was a man or a myth, Son Tinh represents a fundamental truth about the Vietnamese spirit, the power to withstand any storm that comes your way. And in a world that's facing all sorts of new challenges, you have to ask, what does this ancient symbol of resilience really mean for the future?